I could stay like this, forever following you. Just don't get too far, and I'll be right where you are. You're a dream that I could finally see. I just want us to always be, to always be.
Good morning and welcome to SEN Stream. This morning we say hello to Dr Jane Nafauhu. She gives us some insight into the assessment of health and fitness assessments. We look ahead to week 10 and what to expect on the modules. We have a continual professional development update. And as always, we take some questions and take answers in the chat. Stay tuned, folks.
Okay.
Jane, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you.
Yes, I'm glad to be back here. Yeah.
Again, so from what I can gather, we've got our chat loading in the background here, but from what I can gather, we have Dana, who's watching from home. She was first to say hello this morning. And we've got Antonia. Now, we might just be having a nice kind of quiet session with the two of them. I don't know. So, guys, if you are watching at home right now and you're sat with the chat open thinking, should I say hello? Please do, because then at least we know who we're talking to. So Jane, tell us what you're going to cover today.
Today I've just come to basically talk to you about the assessments in assessment of health and fitness. I think I put on my update for this week, it's time to focus on assessments time. So you've got 2 assessments coming up. Basically, you've got your presentations, which are not next week, the week after. And then you've got your client reports, which are due in early May. So we've done all of the, the fun stuff, if you like. And you need to start thinking about how you're going to write up your assessments and formulate your presentations. And I'm sure you've already started already.
If they haven't, nightmare.
Yeah.
So we've got a few more people just logging in and saying hello, so it's always good to let them know we can see them. So Evie, good morning. Sinead, good morning. Nice to have you on. And we have Magdalena as well.
Magda.
Hopefully you guys have all got your questions lined up for Jane. So I think what would be good, Jane, is if we start with just looking at the getting the Blackboard site open, and then if we get that open in the background, then you can kind of give them a bit of a rundown. I know you've probably done this already.
Yeah.
Always good to remind folk what's going on.
Okay.
And then once we've got that, guys, line your questions up, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so let's head across to the Blackboard site now. Oh, goodness, here we go. Right, let me just get it open, guys, because it is in here somewhere. Here we go. Perfect. So we have the Assessment of Health and Fitness Blackboard site in front of us now. Jane, if you kindly let me know where I'm going.
If we go to assessment.
Assessment keeps it nice and simple on the Blackboard site here. You can't get it too wrong.
And I've got 2 folders in there.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then, okay.
What are we going to go for?
Well, the presentation's the one coming up.
Okay.
So let's have a look.
Let's go with the presentation.
What we've got in there: presentation topics, critical view. Right, we've got the the marking grid and guidelines there.
Should we go for that?
May as well, yeah.
Let's go for it. It's a Word document, so let's see how that goes. Right, guys. So feel free to post your questions straight away. Again, we've got the chat open as always, so we can always see what's going on, so you guys can see it as well. The likelihood is as well we will transition over to the chat at some point to make sure you guys can see the questions that are coming in. I didn't realise this was a Word document, so that's why it's taking a little bit of time. But here we are. It's asking me to update my reference manager, but not now, is what I would say on that front. Okay, perfect. Good stuff.
Yeah, right.
So just for my own benefit, Jane, so these guys know, these guys chosen their own topics, or have you been a bit more...
No, I've given them topics, suggested topics, but I did say right at the beginning that if they have a question that they'd really like to research, then fine, just run it by me, let me make sure it's appropriate, and you can go with that. No one's done that.
Oh, okay.
Everyone's really happy with the choices I've given them.
Fair enough.
So yeah, no one's queried that. So it was. I gave them. The idea is that you only review 3 papers. It's not a literature review or a meta-analysis. It's just this presentation's based on 3 papers. It's a question came up this week actually. They should be primary research, original research.
Obviously, at this level, guys, reviews, textbooks. A bit of a no-no. So
yes, no, they need to, and a few people were confused. Reviews, you can't really, for this, you can't include a review. It's got to be a standalone study that's been done.
Yep.
Yeah. So 3 papers. The thing is to aim, the idea is to answer the question that was set to you. If we, I don't suppose we can look at that.
Yeah, sure. Is it a Word document?
Yeah, it's the other one in there.
Oh my goodness. Right, let's have a quick look now.
There, presentation topics.
Oh, I'm trying to click it on my actual stream here. There we go. Let's give this a go. Hopefully it will... Oops, 1 second. Here we go. Right, it's open.
Right, so if you go a bit further down...
Let's have a take a sneaky.
So we've got presentation topics there. So are commercially available caffeinated energy drinks effective ergogenic aids for sports performance?
Interesting.
Does training in a faster state promote positive changes in body composition?
Okay, you've got Jamila, Dakota and Chloe on that one.
Yeah, what else we got? Does carbohydrate ingestion during the game improve team sports performance?
Nice.
Yeah, so it's all the kind of thing that maybe a layperson, not maybe put in such a succinct way, but a layperson might ask you.
Nice.
And I assume that you would then, if you didn't, if you hadn't got sort of the practical experience,
Yeah.
that you would go to the literature and have a look.
I've just seen one of these topics here. Resistance training in overweight women on a ketogenic diet conserved lean body mass whilst reducing body fat. Josh,
Yes.
Maddie and Ben, good luck with that, because that's on an end.
That is quite a focus. I mean, some of them are very broad.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we've got
yeah.
one about vitamin D and performance, which, you know, you've got that one, supplementation.
Yeah.
But that one is very kind of focused. Now, you do have the option to broaden that out a bit if you want. But so far, nobody's really... I've had one query about that. But yeah, so some of them are broad, some of them are more focused.
Nice. Evie's on her own here.
That's because we were split across 3 rooms. 'Cause
Okay.
We've got 3 rooms. You remember last year? You
So
assessed them last year, didn't you? Do you remember?
Well, yeah, I think so. But I hope Evie's not going to be stood in the large
No,
lecture
no.
theatre talking
She's
to a
not.
bunch of chairs. Jeez,
Would you like that, Evie?
I suspect she may not.
No.
I don't know.
She's got a topic on her own, but she's going to... So there'll be 2 rooms of 7 and 1 room of 8.
Okay, yeah.
So we've only got like 8 topics.
Yep,
So
yep.
we've got a number of people for each one.
It's conveniently links into her MSc project, I can see. Is
Funnily
it?
enough, do you know what? How strange.
Indeed. Coincidence, maybe. Or maybe tactical from Evie. You know, she is the course she is a course rep. She's
Yeah.
always ahead. Right. With that in mind, then, we've got the topics. I mean, from what I can gather, these guys know what they need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope so.
So again, I think before we transition into it, thinking back to last year and stuff like that, the 3 papers that you choose, again, there's a tendency there for students to choose, dare I say it, crap papers. And it's kind of, I always interpret that, and do correct me if I'm wrong, but I do always interpret that as a little bit as like, if it's a crap paper, why did you include it? So it needs to be kind of this balance, doesn't it, where you kind of take the quality of the research that's been presented
Yes.
and present the best research that you can. But if you've got a conflicting point there, then maybe it's 2 decent papers, but that conflict. Then you've got a strong argument to say whether it's in a particular direction or not. I think,
Sure.
Is that fair? I don't know.
It is, yeah. And the idea is that they do synthesise often contradictory sort of outcomes in
Findings,
research. Yeah. So not just everything. You can choose 3 papers that agree if you want, but the idea is really to come up with a critical analysis.
Yep.
Basically. So if you choose 3 that are fairly not in total agreement, then you can produce a better argument.
Yeah, and just on that as well, before we move over to the chat, the idea of a critical analysis or a critical review of those is not basically just like sending the paper to damnation because it's rubbish or whatever.
No.
And again, if you choose a rubbish paper, it's easy to do that.
Yeah.
But it would be building on looking at the methodology that they've used as to whether there's any areas where the paper is actually done really well in that regard. So they have got a good, strong study design, or they have stated, if they've used an ergogenic aid, they've actually reported the amounts, and they've provided analysis of, say, like the caffeine consumption, as in they've actually measured it rather than just assuming that.
Sure.
Is there anything else you want to add to that before we move over?
No, I think that pretty sums it up. We have talked about this in class, but yeah, if people have given like very strong, good evidence for why the authors say they've come to their eventual conclusion, you know, does what's in the paper, does the evidence in the paper support the conclusion that they're making right at the end?
Yeah.
And what evidence have they given to support that?
Nice.
Yeah.
And these guys got a slide limit?
Well, as you know, last year, Mike, we had a bit of a thing about people trying to present like 30 slides in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Which was partly, I suppose you could say, I didn't put very strong guidelines down. So this year I've said like 10 to 12, 15 at the most will not make you stressed. If you try to present 30 slides in 15 minutes, you'll be awfully stressed and you'll be speaking very, 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 very quickly.
Yeah, it'll turn into a lecture like you get on advanced performance nutrition, which you guys all know what that feels like. So, yeah. I had a lot of feedback with regards to my lectures. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
These guys don't hold back, Jane. So, you know.
Good. Far away then.
Basically, they said to me that they felt like they were being spoken to, or spoken at, I think one student said, for 3 hours. So that was...
That was straightforward.
I know, I just... hit me hard, but I've built on it. I've reflected, and I've regathered.
You've used that.
I've channeled it, Jane.
Yeah,
I've channeled
good.
it. Right, so we're going to move over to the chat. I'm going to open the chat up for us on the big screen, Jane, so we can actually see it.
Fab.
We've got Ted and Josh have joined us coming in. Hi,
Morning.
guys. Morning, Ted. And we've also got Josh. Hi. Sorry, I am late. That's all right, Josh. You can join us at any time. But unfortunately, once you're here, guys, you're not allowed to leave. So
No.
now I was expecting the chat to be flooded with questions.
Perhaps everyone's in control and knows what they're doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's get some feedback from the guys who were sat there. How are you guys feeling about the presentation? I mean, be honest, some of you might be sat there thinking, I haven't even thought about the presentation yet, Mike, because I've only just submitted my design study and I'm getting over the trauma and
Yes.
all of that, and that's fine. But again, happy to answer any questions about advice. So while you guys are kind of picking up on sort of like just thinking about types of questions that you might want to ask, I'm just going to pick up on that idea of the slide limit, if you like. So
yeah, it's a guidance.
it's a guidance thing, but again, like try and break that down into being like a sensible. How could you apply that guidance sensibly? So again, you've got 15 minutes. So again, making the assumption if you had like 15 slides, that breaks it down to a slide a minute. So again, that then gives you a framework to think about how much information you can realistically convey within a minute's period, and you can then start to put your slides around that kind of structure. Because again, if you get presented with a wall of text, it's just not engaging at all.
It's not. And we did show a few sort of examples of things that are not engaging.
Yep.
Include one, a wall of text is definitely one.
Yep.
Yeah. I think I did put some slides up in week 2. We did something about preparing for this, and
Yep.
I made suggested framework of how many slides you could allow for each thing you're going to cover.
Yep.
Which I think is in the week 2 folder. But yeah, there are lots of things that are not engaging about a presentation. And as I said probably a couple of weeks ago, the whole idea about everything you're doing on this course, a lot of it's about communication. Presentations about communication, and if people start to switch off when you start presenting because you've got tons and tons of text and no visuals and nothing to capture anybody's engagement, you're not communicating very well.
Yeah. Again, to help with that, you may want to talk about like the study design that you're presenting, of which again those the study timelines that I suggest, the figures that you could have used in your design study if you put that through to help communicate what the actual design of the study was. When were the assessments done? When were the measurements taken? What was the exercise about? Again, if you could write that out in bullet points, but you could also like almost design your own trial diagram to kind of communicate that over in a very visual way. And again, it's a really easy way of trying to convey a study design very quickly and very visually without overloading the audience with lots of text, really.
Yeah.
So that can be super helpful as well.
Really,
so.
yeah. And the better ones last year, I did show an example of a good one last year, did have lots of visual stuff that you could pick up straight away, even using tables. A table, it's got all the information right there. If you wanted to do a summary table, for example,
Yep.
At the end or as a sort of concluding table, a table will tell you, you can really pick up on it straight away what you're talking about. Whereas if it's lines and lines of text, it's much more difficult to get a handle on. Yeah.
Well, and again, please, guys, ask some questions because we've got this is why we've got Jane in the studio. So please do ask them if you've got them. We're gonna, if I don't get any questions about the presentations, we are gonna move on to the client report.
Yeah.
Shortly after this. So if your question refers to that, fair enough. But just to pick up on a point, and I don't want to be too prescriptive here, but some of the presentations I watched last year, some students chose to take like the structural approach of presenting like the general idea, introduction and hypothesis of each of the 3 studies, and then they moved into the design of each of the 3 studies, and then they moved into the results of each of the 3 studies. Now, from my perspective, what that forces that forces the audience to have to do is hold lots of information about 3 distinct studies that they may not have ever seen before in their head. So when then you come round to each of the sections, you have to have remembered the introduction and the rationale of 3 studies, the methodology and the rationale and the design of 3 studies, and then the results. And then you're trying to hold all these different designs, and you think, is this figure in relation to the first study, the second study, or the third? And by the, I mean, I feel like I'm not that, like, I feel like I'm capable of trying to do that, but it's not the best way of doing that.
No. Clarity is one thing. We're looking for clarity.
Yeah.
Clarity of line of presentation, really, logical flow.
Yeah.
And something that people can follow.
Because, I mean, ultimately, if you are kind of, like I say, if you are kind of chunking it together like that, you're kind of forcing your audience to have to hold lots and lots of stuff, and by the time you get to the results and the conclusions, it can be quite difficult to try and piece that together. Might be very clear in your head because you've spent
studied it,
hours reading the papers and putting all that information together. But sorry, I'm kicking Jane's bad foot here.
Bad leg.
Jesus, we'll move on. But that would be my kind of insight and advice. And I'm gonna make the assumption then that you guys, because there's no questions coming, we should probably move on. But the final thing to say, you guys are working in groups for the presentations.
They're not in groups really. They're grouped because we've got 8 topics. So the 3 people have got. There's 3 people per topic, but they'll be split across 3 rooms, so there's not going to be any repetition in each room.
Oh, I see. I get it. Sorry.
Yes.
I was thinking it was going to be a group presentation because of vote 3. I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, Sinead has come in with a question. Thank you, Sinead. I have a question, please. For the associated lay summary, can I ask when it will be due, brackets via Turnitin question mark, and also whether it should be referenced as we would normally do in an article or paper question mark?
Right. Good question, Sinead. And actually nobody, not in class or anywhere, has asked me about the lay summary, so this is a good opportunity to just have a little clarification on that. So it should be submitted via Turnitin the day... Well, on the day of the presentation, actually, or say the day before. Last year we did it on the day of presentation, but then we had 10 o'clock cut-off points, whereas now they're 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So the day before, there will be a Turnitin link set up. What was the... Yes.
Should it be referenced as we would normally do in any article / paper?
So this really is the consumer summary. It's your overall conclusion based on the contents of the papers, but you're talking to the consumer, the person in the street who has very little real either nutritional or exercise physiology knowledge, just like a client would ask you in a gym or something. So you're talking back to them. You're taking off your scientific head speak now, and you're just talking to a lay person, an average person. So you wouldn't specifically put references in that, but you could say something like an interesting paper by Brown in 2014 said this. So you can say where you've read about it, but I don't think it actually calls for referencing.
It's your assessment. I think it all makes sense, really. It's almost like if you were to pick up a sport specific magazine or like a newspaper article or a summary. The things that you wouldn't typically see the referencing in there. On a Wikipedia page, you might see the number, and then you could scroll down to the bottom and see if you wanted to find out more. But I think just to add to this a little bit is that you just need to think about the language that you're using in that as well. So things like hypertrophy or ergogenic aid, and if you think, well, my nan's not going to understand what an ergogenic aid is unless she's actually an exercise physiologist or a sport exercise nutritionist from a previous life, retired, goes on holidays frequently now or whatever. But the point remains that if explain it to a relative, a non-scientific friend, they're not going to get what hypertrophy is. They're not going to get what an ergogenic aid is. They're not going to understand what the CYP1A2 gene is in relation to caffeine consumption. So again, you need to use language which would be appropriate for communicating your message. And it's such a valuable skill in science to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, some students do struggle with it a bit because they're naturally thinking about hypertrophy and things like that. And they put it into these lay summaries. The ones who did best last year really spoke in plain English. Because you can, when you're reading it, saying what I'm reading, I can quickly pick out those words that the layperson wouldn't really know what it meant. So don't sort of use slang or anything like that. It's mad skills in it, mate. When you consume whatever, but I'm gonna stop that accent immediately before I lose my job. I don't know. You take what you want from that, but right.
I'm trying to be down with the kids, but ultimately I'm losing my hair and getting old and all sorts of craziness.
Age appropriate, Mike.
Indeed. Ultimately, though, it's almost like the ultimate means of being able to communicate your understanding. If you can extract meaning that anyone could understand from what is quite a complex and technical thing, then you're probably doing all right on the understanding front, because you would know the appropriate words and the appropriate terminology that you could select in order to communicate that point effectively to any audience. Which ultimately, if you think about we're trying to get scientists to move from like the ivory towers of universities and get out into the public and make their research meaningful. And the buzzword for us as academics would be impactful. So you get your message out and you actually get it to the people that are going to benefit from that particular research.
Sure. Yeah.
So translating your findings into something that's meaningful and impactful to the wider society is a trend. And a good trend is what I would say.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
we've got another question.
Oh, really?
It's from Magdalena.
Yeah.
I have a question. Good. Do we have to submit both the presentation and the lay conclusion the day before, or send the presentation to Jane and submit the conclusion? Question mark.
The conclusion. Do you mean the lay summary?
Yeah, I think that's the two
Right.
things that this is referring to
Okay.
there. So obviously these guys are going to submit their lay summary on the
yes.
Turnitin, and then they're going to submit their presentation to how they
I
do
think
it.
on the day, bring the presentation with you on a memory stick, please. Don't bring it. Don't try and find it in your OneDrive or something, because that takes too long. Just bring it on a stick that you can quickly plug in. We do want the presentations so that the external examiner can see them,
Yes. So
and we will
Panopto?
also record them on
Yeah, yeah.
Panopto. Because last year she commented that she couldn't really comment on them too well because we didn't record. Well, I didn't record my room.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, the guys who did the design study presentations for if your supervisor was me, Claire, Rumi, or Brad, you would have had your design study submission panoptoed. So the absolute minimum would be sound with your slides. It can be quite useful from like having your own sort of interpretive feedback to see yourself present. So you kind of get this combination of your slides, your voice, and and your kind of body language to kind of give you that ultimate feedback in, well, how do you come across when you present? Because sometimes that can be the ultimate feedback, that your own self-perception of, like, for example, apparently I've got quite camp.
Really?
Well, according to my partner, yes. She thinks I'm as camp as Christmas, but there we are, that's fine. I don't need to justify it. I'm comfortable with it. I've embraced it.
You're comfortable.
I've got just very long arms, I think is how she describes it. But nevertheless.
Sounds like a gibbon.
And my northern overtones as well makes me sound stupid.
Quite unique.
But unique. Excellent. Well, feedback left, right, and centre. But you don't get that kind of feedback unless someone sticks a camera on you. So we might play it by ear. I don't know. But but yeah, we will record them on Panopto. So at least you get that feedback. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Just to finish off on Magda's query, as soon as the external wants to see them, I think we should have them uploaded via Turnitin the day before, but you're not going to be you won't be marked down as late, for example. You will be there on the day to present, so if you're not there, that's when you're absent. But you're not going to be sort of a cut-off point in terms of you're overdue if you don't send it me exactly the day before. You can send it on the day as long as you're there to present on the day. So bring the presentation on your memory stick, upload to Turnitin the day before, and if you can, upload your presentation to Turnitin the day before or on the day.
I think maybe a good thing to do after the stream today would be maybe put together an announcement, just making that super clear.
Because not everybody's watching, obviously.
Exactly, yeah. And then if Jane puts up an announcement on the Blackboard site, just to instruct you exactly what needs to be done, then it can be super clear for everyone moving forward. So I think that would work out quite nicely. So. And
just before we move off this week coming, you've got a chance to present for 5 minutes a part of your presentation in your small groups to get a bit of peer review experience.
I feel like that could be quite a fun session.
Well, we're split across 3 rooms.
Yep.
And you'll just be in the group that you'll be in on the day.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of peer review of each other. So you'll all get a chance to say one good thing and one thing you think that could be
what you did
improved.
Well.
Yes.
How can you improve?
Exactly. Yes, we've taken that mantra now.
I'm trying to. Jeez, yeah.
No, so we'll do that, and it'll be helpful for you, I hope.
Yeah, Antonia's just come in with a point here on the chat. You can only submit one document on Turnitin, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah,
yes,
there'll be 2 links set up. Yeah,
I'm not sure. Can you submit PowerPoints on Turnitin?
Well, let me think this. I can't see why not.
I've never done it. Is the only reason I asked. So it may be something to just double check before we move forward.
If not, then just email them to me. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, again, I think the main point here is that we can get some clarity after the session today. Make sure that you guys know exactly what you need to do when you submit moving forward. But
Sure.
you've plenty of time before that happens. So get that up and then we should be grand. So I mean, we're already sort of 25 minutes into the stream. So should we move it on to the other? If you have any other questions regarding the presentation, guys, feel free to ask them and we can then pick them up afterwards. But we're going to just change track a little bit onto the other assessment for this module. So that would be the client reports. Let me just get this open for you guys and then we can have a quick look from there. Again, the client report questions, please feel free to ask them whenever you guys think of them and bring them up. But I'm just going to get them up on the on the Blackboard site now. So if I head across to assessments, then we're going to go for client fitness testing. And then we can see here standardized advice, or that would be preliminary results, template of the short report that would be given to you. Which one should I go for?
I don't think this is.
Should I go back?
Is there nothing else in here? Where's the marking guidelines?
So this would be our client fitness testing. Yep.
Very strange. The marking guidelines should be up there too.
Okay. Maybe we need to get the marking guidelines on there.
Yeah, there was a lot more in that last time I looked. I don't know where it's gone. So I'll re-put
I'm
that
just
up,
curious as to whether
client preliminary results.
I'm just curious as to whether if I've got it on student mode or staff mode. Yeah. So you've got this extra stuff down here, but by the looks of it, oh no, maybe I'm wrong.
So it must just be further down.
Yeah, I would maybe we need to just have a quick look at what you guys. In fact, guys, in the chat, if someone could just go across to the Blackboard site and tell me what version you can see. Now, I'm fairly certain this is the staff version because when I hover over, I can change them.
And you can go further down and see the marking guidelines.
Again, someone in the chat, please let me know what you guys can see and what you can't see, because it's not hugely clear from our. It's quite difficult for us to tell what you guys can see and what you can't see sometimes. But if I just go down to here and just have a quick look on the actual link and just see whether it's visible or not. Yeah, they should be able to see this. Right. Okay, so again, someone in the chat, just let us know. Yeah. And that would be super helpful. But let's scroll down, let's find the marking guidelines, and then we can carry on with the conversation. We'll go from there. I think it might be because you've got lots of returns here. I don't know.
Oh, is it?
Maybe. Okay, so we've got client fitness testing guidelines.
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's take a quick look. Here we go. Excellent. Yes, I can see it all. Big smiley face from Antonia there. Thank you, Antonia, for just checking that. I'm glad you guys can see everything, which means it's all available to you. Again, if you've not updated your RefWorks, folks, this is because RefWorks has changed, and I basically refuse to update my because I don't want to have to learn how to do it all again. I'm all right with RefWorks original, and it's now I don't even know what it's called. It's like Ref ProQuest. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, in my opinion. But there we are, onwards and upwards. Right. So talk us through it, Jane.
So this is a standard format of a laboratory, a research paper.
Yeah.
Basically intro, methods, results discussion, references, but we've got profile of the athlete in there as well, which is an extra. But it should be written up in the style of a paper to be submitted to a peer-reviewed journal.
Nice.
With a couple of extras like the profile. It's kind of like a case study. It's only one person.
It's exactly like a case study, I think.
So it's your athlete that you tested last week. Yeah. You will have some results from them by now, I hope. And we're going to spend the first half of this coming week, next week rather, going through that as well, writing up the report.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah. So, but, the basic scientific conventions that we abide by when we present results, tables and figures properly formatted, scientific convention, scientific writing, all reference, all evidence-based. It's fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of, shuffle room in that. That's the way it is.
I've some years I've marked some of these and seen them. I also have to sit in front of our external examiner and tell them why these marks are justified. So some of the client reports I've come across in the past, one of our external examiners, he's now he's a prof at Leeds Beckett University, or Leeds Trinity, sorry. He's not our external anymore, but one of the points he made was that your results section should be consistent with that of a peer-reviewed journal. Now, again, unless you're sort of smashing out world-leading research in Nature or Cell, the likelihood is that figure is going to be in black and white. So if you're going to use colour, again, it's not typically what... if I submitted a figure in a journal, the editor would come back and say to me, this colour doesn't add any value. And similarly, the university gets charged more to have a colour figure. So it's something like, usually black and white figures are usually free to insert up to a certain number, but as soon as you put colour on there, then the journal in way back when would have had to have been printed in colour, which you have to front the cost for, and that's why typically most people would publish in black and white, keep the costs down, makes it photocopyable. But also you need to think, does colour in this figure add value? And if it doesn't, if you could do it with black and white, with shading, with patterns on your axis, on your figures, on your, like say if it was a bar chart, for example, then do it in black and white, because it's typically what was done. It's very clear. It doesn't matter if you're colourblind, which again, you can't make the assumption that whoever's marking your work isn't. So again, all those factors are something to bear in mind, and especially it's good practice leading into writing your dissertation as well. Same convention.
Practice,
Scientific
presentation, all the same kind of stuff that you'll be doing in your dissertation, really.
Yep.
There's only one thing that you wouldn't necessarily submit for a peer review, and that's all the accessory reports like the informed consent, the pre-screening questionnaires. That you would not put in a paper.
Yep.
But in your dissertation you would.
Yeah, appendices.
Yes.
Yeah, just to demonstrate,
so for
really.
this purposes of this report, you will want to include those informed consent pre-screening, because we've got to think about the ethical side of it as well.
Yep.
One of the marking criteria is something about demonstrating ethical awareness. So you will do that by including your informed consent and everything in the appendices.
Yeah. So we've got factors to consider on the day, but we're beyond that now. So if you made a mistake on the day, you're going to have to live with that.
We've got the marking grid that actually is on a separate document.
Let's have a look.
Yeah.
So I think the general question I would ask you, Jane, before we open it up to the chat is how can our students do well on this assessment? We've talked about some key things there, but what sort of take-home messages?
The remit is it should be written in the style of an article to be presented to a peer review journal. So if you get it like sort of that type of quality, if you get your results presented in that type of quality, that's with those scientific conventions and standards, if you give some good applicability, so you've got the results, in the discussion you really go for the applicability of those results to your athlete. How can he use them? What do they mean to him? And also make some nice general recommendations going forwards. You don't have to provide a training plan or anything like that, but based on those results, how can he use those results in the next 3 months, say, or 6 months to improve his performance?
Excellent. Unfortunately, I clicked OK here, which I think has upset everything. So,
right.
Yeah, just give me one. There we go. There we go. I might get prompted to do something else in a second, but here we are. A nice rubric here for everyone to follow. Again, you've all got access to this. You've got your marking bands here, qualifying mark. So again, qualifying mark is that if you get between 40 and 49, it means that if you got an overall mark for the assessment on that, you'd have to resit it. But if you got less than 40% on the assessment, you would have to do the module again. So that's what qualifying mark stands for there. Then we got low pass, high pass, low merit, high merit, and distinction. And again, just be aware it's greater than 70. So our external examiner is very, very keen to ensure that we are accessing the upper bands of that 30%. So if you demonstrate work that is good of an excellent standard, you will be credited for that via that band. Just to be sort of super clear on that, because I think a lot of people think that we're marking to that 70. With actual fact, it's not true.
No, you can get into the 80s.
Yep,
People
comfortably
have got into the 80s so far this year.
Yep.
Yep.
So there we go. And I'm not gonna force you to talk through this. It's available. So
yes,
again,
it's on there. I think it's all straightforward, really.
It's pretty self-explanatory, yeah. If you have, again, if you're writing the assessment, this is comprehensive rubric as well, Jane, may I add.
Took me ages.
Indeed. I hate writing rubrics, but there we are. Again, you really want to be having this available to you when you're writing your assessment. That's a sensible thing.
We mark to these, so you may as well write to them.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It's my personal opinion here is that it does create a paint by numbers type approach to assessment, but this is the direction of higher education, I'm afraid. So we're going to move on from my personal opinion there and move it straight into the chat. So let's have a look what people are having to say. I'm going to put the chat up for us so we can see it, Jane. Here we go. Sinead, for the client report, should each figure and table be on a separate page as in a thesis or integrated as in a paper? Thanks.
Integrated.
You like integrated?
Should each figure and table be on a separate page as in a thesis or integrated? I've always, for these reports, I've always just said integrated, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. I think see where this question is coming from, because I would say a lot of the other assessments suggest a new page.
Right.
So for their design study, for example, I think maybe the take-home message there then is it doesn't matter.
Not to me.
Yeah.
On this, it's fine. Whichever way you want to do it. I won't be particularly looking at that. But if some other pieces of assessment have stipulated that, then we'll go with that.
I think, again, dissertation-wise, you want to be putting your figures on a new page so that it's very clear and the figure's got a bit of room to breathe, and therefore, and then you can talk about it in the text. So figure 1 refers to whatever.
Yeah.
But clearly you're a little bit more flexible, so that's the advice. Go with it.
I'm thinking how they're presented in a paper,
Yeah.
Not each one doesn't have a separate page in a journal.
True that. Yeah. That's. I think you don't have a preference, so therefore do what you think is appropriate. Yeah.
Breaker really for this.
Excellent. Antonia, in the methods section where it says ethical approval, I'm assuming that was done before clients were recruited, ? How should this be described in that section?
Okay. I will give you the ethical approval application number, which I'll put on Blackboard. It has been done to you, so it is approved by the ethics committee, and I'll give you the number.
And is that
to include in the methods section?
And is that an ethical approval that's specific to the module and the assessment then?
To this assessment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah, because we're working with outside clients.
Yeah. Okay.
So they've got their own special thing. And that ethics should come right at the beginning of the methods section. When you start your methods, start it with ethical approval, to show that was the first thing you had to do before you did anything.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good question, Antonia. Thank you for asking that. Any other questions coming in, please let us know as soon as you can, and then we will politely say goodbye to Jane and thank you for being here, obviously.
Right. My pleasure.
But yeah, I think it's a nice assessment to do, because it starts to get you into the mindset of writing in that kind of IMROD kind of structure that you are going to use for your dissertation as well. And again, I suppose the primary distinction between writing in this kind of style is the fact that it is more of a case study, because you're working on one individual, so you have an n equals 1. So when you describe your participant characteristics, I'd suspect that's the biggest difference that you're going to find.
Yeah, so there's no real stats involved in this at all.
Indeed, it's all descriptive.
Yeah,
really.
descriptive.
Yeah. But yeah, I suppose the biggest factor there to consider then is the interpretation of those and the application that will come in your discussion section, really. So those are the higher level 7 kind of criteria that we're going to be looking for, is your interpretation of what does all this mean moving forward. So again, make sure I assume in the framework there's a bit of flexibility for innovative ideas, innovative thinking, how you apply things. So again,
we've had some really good ones last year. Really kind of useful to the client. Yeah. And as I said, the one from each group, one of those reports, with your permission, I will send to your client.
Nice.
And
excellent.
They do like it. They find it very useful.
Indeed. Well, perfect. Good job.
It's good. They like it.
Well, with the assumption then that we don't have any further questions to ask, I think we'll wrap it up there. It's going to be a incredibly long stream today, but because I might have to rattle through the updates. But if everyone could just say a polite thank you to Jane in the chat, that would be very nice.
But we've got another question in there.
Oh, have we? Oh, here we go.
I didn't bring my specs.
I mean, I struggle, and anyway. Also with our client The equipment failed a few times. We have data, but should we make it clear in the report that these results may be slightly flawed? And could we do this? Question mark. And or how could
Yes.
we do this?
Right.
Are you aware of the problem they had, or
Which group? I'm not
this
sure.
is Antonia? Antonia, if you could be a bit more specific about this, but essentially generically, if they've had issues with data collection during the session, how can they handle that?
Right. It's in the guidelines somewhere. Specific conditions on the day of the test in the methods, which would include equipment failure.
Oh, sorry, Jane. Sorry.
Yeah. Anything that went slightly askew, obviously that might affect your results.
So the group was with Liza.
Right.
So Liza was, from what I gather, smashing out a VO2
She
max
was,
test,
God.
not messing around
No.
town. I saw her results. She shared them with me.
Mm.
I think she did all right. So fair enough.
She did good.
Yes. So in the guidance document, then there is a little bit of detail about how you can go about handling those
Yeah,
issues.
it should be included.
Yep.
Because it may have affected your results.
Yeah, I think maybe it would be a nice opportunity in the so the lactate pro didn't work for the few of the tests, and the bike kept changing the RP the RP towards the end.
I don't know what the problem was with the Lactate Pro. Did you get it? Okay.
So I was chatting with again, going a bit off piece
Yeah.
here, but I was chatting to Antonia during, because we were getting ready for doing. She's one of my project students. We were
Right.
getting ready for starting up the data collection on that. And we were talking about the fact that if you squeeze the finger too hard when you're doing any form of finger prick assessment, that you start to get a bit of interstitial fluid. So if you're finding yourself having to really force the blood out of the finger, that drives interstitial fluid out from the surrounding tissues. And we know, again, if you have listened to anything that Claire has said about monitoring blood glucose and managing diabetes, for example, that if you're taking interstitial fluid, it's always about 10-15 minutes behind what you are seeing live. And that's why when you do a lactate assessment, it's really, really important you're getting whole blood that's fresh from the bloodstream straight away. If you get interstitial fluid, you'll start to see weird results, like lactate values that happened 10 minutes ago, which might have been before the start of exercise, which is a problem. So, excuse me. So again, how would you handle that? It was going to affect your lactate curve, and you might want to indicate on your figure as to which values you would consider being out width of the range of normal for that intensity of exercise, perhaps. Yeah. I'm not quite sure what you mean the bike kept changing the RPM. I think you mean RPM. And were they using the load bike?
The load bike, yeah.
That's an interesting point, because the load bike doesn't need to have its cadence regulated.
No.
It's an electronically braked ergometer, which means that it doesn't matter what cadence your participant is cycling at, it will elicit the power output you've stated if you had it in manual mode.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't really be a problem.
I think towards the end it went a bit. I think Liza was struggling quite a lot towards the end, and she kept kind of almost stopping.
And then
Yeah.
So again, if we think about the force times distance relationship that we're getting to determine our power output on the bike, if you let your participants' cadence drop, then in order to elicit the same power output, the force they have to generate on every single pedal revolution goes through the roof. So the advice I tend to give to people who do VO2 max and lactate threshold assessments on the bike is keep their cadence at their preferred or higher, which means that the force they have to generate for every single pedal revolution is kept low, but the power is maintained at what it needs to be, because they're providing that smaller or lower force more frequently, and therefore you maintain power output more effectively. It also forces the stress of the test onto your cardiovascular system, and less about sort of peripheral muscular fatigue, if you like.
I think that's what was happening.
Yeah.
She was getting some peripheral fatigue.
Yeah.
But you did the best job you could, really, and we chose a VO2 peak for Liza because it went a bit odd at the end.
So you didn't
And I
average 30 seconds, or
not right at the end, because I don't think that was valid at the end.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
But you did the best job you could, so.
Well, there we are.
Yeah.
So I think say some sensible things about it, and then your interpretation from how that affects your data set needs to
Exactly.
come from you, really.
Yeah.
So how you handle that, how much value you can put on that, those types of things. So yeah, hopefully that was good. So excellent. We've got a couple of thank yous coming in. I'm not sure how many people are still tuned in, because it's been a longer episode so far. Thanks Jane from Ted. Thanks Jane from Magdalena. We've got a thank you for Antonia as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Jane. It was pointed out from my partner tuned in and watched the Research Methods for Health Sciences 2 session, and apparently I didn't say thank you to Teddy, so she told me off for that when I got home. She was like, come on, Mike, jeez. We've got a thank you from Josh as well. So
thanks, Josh.
yes. So good luck with the assessments, guys. Start chipping away at them. You've got a specific session next
Thursday.
Next Thursday, with Jane on this. Do turn up to it. Get those.
Have a go. Come and practice.
And those practice sessions for the presentations should be a good laugh. Again, be honest with your peers about their presenting style, because it can be quite useful to get that feedback
before you do it actually live in front of the assessors.
If there's anyone out there thinking, I don't really fancy that, is there any provisions we can make? Then just speak to Jane directly, and she can help that.
You don't have to. But it's good. I mean, it's nice to give and receive a bit of feedback.
Indeed. Evie coming in there with a thank you, Josh, as well. So perfect. So, guys, if you are happy to hang around, I'm going to do the standard SEN stream where I go through the module updates. We'll probably skip over Jane's because she's giving you insights of what's happening. I've got a couple of continued professional development opportunities as well. We don't have a tweet of the week this week, but stay tuned if you want to find out a little bit more about what's happening next week. And it says, FYI, Mike, it still says GPHN at the bottom of the screen. I'm aware, Ted, and yes, it is a problem, and it will be fixed by next week. So, because we are bitter rivals to the GPHN program, and we do not hold back from that on SEN stream. But irrespective of how I act in the office, open plan office. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Thank you very much once again, Jane. Yes. We're just going to have a quick pause and we'll go from there. So take it easy. We'll be back in about a minute's time. All right. Thanks, guys. Guys, welcome back. I've chosen the wrong scene. Here we go. I don't have time or the inclination to change all of the settings for the stream to make it look decent. So, as in, obviously they're all set up to when Jane is in the audience. So if it looks a bit weird, I think we're just going to have to suck it up for this time. Thank you very much for the thank yous in the chat to Jane. She's hurt her foot, so it was quite a challenge for her to get in here. So I was just giving her a hand with the doors and such like, just so she could actually get back to the lift and get a taxi and go and sit down again. So, yeah, thanks very much for taking the time to ask those questions. Hopefully you found them helpful. And it seems like there's a comprehensive set of instructions and guidance on the Blackboard site. And again, just remember that, again, I can't emphasize this enough, that at level 7, innovative thinking, innovative ideas, and the application of new knowledge, new ideas is kind of key for those assessments to push you up into the kind of higher brackets of the assessment. So please don't be, read around the topic, get that knowledge applied, and think about things in a kind of lateral way, because that's what master's level is about. It's about thinking about things and applying that knowledge in a way that your peers and other professionals in the field may not have thought about in that particular way, and we really want to encourage that. So let me get the slides open for today's SEN stream. I'm going to maybe go through this a little bit quicker than we usually do, just because I'm acutely aware that we've been going for basically over an hour so far, and I want to kind of get on top of that. So we're going to kick off with the module updates, and we're going to start with advanced performance nutrition. Again, as always, folks, if you have any questions, I've got the chat open in the background, so I will take the opportunity to answer questions where I can. Where I can't do that, I will try and find the answers out for you. So we're going to kick off with advanced performance nutrition. For the 12 assessments that have been put through, I've had the opportunity to mark 9 of them. I have 3 left to do. I've cancelled a lab session with one of my undergrads this afternoon so I can get this finished. There was some stuff in the lab that wasn't going well, and it is not going to get fixed today. So, and I'm very keen to ensure that you guys have got that feedback and you've got a sufficient amount of time to actually act upon it. I initially said as well that there will be audio feedback. I haven't had access to my microphone to do this, so there's comprehensive in-text feedback, and there's a summary, a text summary on each of your feedbacks as well. If I do get access to a mic that's appropriate for doing the extra audio stuff, and I've got time this afternoon, I will try and do that. Just be aware though, I'll be sat in an open plan office, so you might hear other things going on in the background. So, looking ahead to week 10. We have Dr. Bradley Elliott and Dr. Sanjoy Deb doing 2 distinct sessions on, one is on the aging athlete and looking at optimal aging and the role that nutrition can play moving into that. And I believe Sanjoy is doing a session that is on sodium bicarbonate. Now, originally this session was open to another external lecturer. Unfortunately, I haven't had anyone available to do that session. So we've got Brad and Sanjoy coming in to do those acute sessions on 2 areas that are of particular interest to sport and exercise nutritionists. So get across to the sessions and get involved. Both excellent speakers, as you know, and you will gain a lot of benefit from doing that. Finally, we're moving into week 10, and we've also got an exam to think about on the module. So I will take the opportunity to start posting some example exam questions so you guys can start preparing for the exam. You will also be aware that in week 11, we have the final sort of formal talk session with Emmanuelle Vopli, who she's going to be talking about the nutrigenomics, nutrigenetics of sports nutrition. And then in the final week, we've got a consolidation session. So I'm going to treat that as like a bit of a revision session, but I'll talk more about that moving into that session later on in, well, likely next week in SEN stream or the week after. So do start to think about how you're going to prepare for the exam. Don't leave it all to the last minute. This is going to be a tricky exam that requires preparation. You don't want to be kind of going into it on the fly. So again, I will make sure that you guys have got materials to prepare adequately for that session moving ahead. Just a quick look at the chat just to make sure I've got nothing coming in. We have a question. Let me just pop over to the chat. So, Antonia, for the summative assessment, 20% of the marks are for the video and quality of sound. I only have my laptop to record. Will this be a problem? I would say, again, do the best with what you've got. But if I can help, I have an entire studio that I have access to with recording materials, of which you literally just need to plug into your laptop and you're good to go. So, if I can help with that, let me know. If you need to borrow a webcam or something like that, again, I can help with that. My advice to you there, Antonio, just with how recording and sound recording works, I'd recommend that you get into a non-echoey room would probably be the best. The key factors that you will be assessed on with regards to the quality of your video will be things that you can clearly hear what your participant is saying, and that you can clearly see how the presentation has been conducted. Okay, so just bear that in mind when you move into recording your client consultation. Again, the reason that there's such a large emphasis on that is because whoever your partner is so dependent on it. If they can't hear what's being said, or it's ambiguous to what's being said, or it's just awful to listen to, it's going to impact on your partner's ability to actually listen to the client consultation. So if I can help with that, let me know, and we can go from there. Again, the only person who's taken up the opportunity to use one of the rooms available in on the 4th floor is Ed Stoladay. So hopefully he's taken up the opportunity to book out that room. Again, if you're struggling with places to go and do your consultancy, that is always an option to you. So take the opportunity to do that. I'm going to move back over to the slides to move things on. Hopefully that's answered your question anyway, Antonia. Do let me know if you need any assistance with that. So moving ahead into, I believe this is assessment of health and fitness from memory. No, nutritional assessment. Perfect. So you'll have nutritional assessment. It says week 7. It should say week 10. I forget to update these, but the updates are correct. So we're just going to run through these now. I'm probably going to make them big on the screen just so you guys can actually see, but I'm going to be sat in the way, I suspect. Oh, sorry. Let's go back. Okay, so I'm just going to move me out of the way for a second because it's not really that important. There we go. Right. So you have an SPSS session with Claire in C201. Now, Claire has been very keen to say, she's very keen to find out what you guys and what your concerns are when it comes to the use of SPSS. Now, you guys are likely, if you're going to do any comparisons in your dissertation, that you're going to be making some statistical comparisons. So the whole point of the session is to increase your confidence using SPSS. Now, I'm fairly certain that Claire has this particular symbol here. I want to point down there. I'm fairly certain she's got a tattoo of that somewhere on her person because Claire lives, eats, breathes SPSS. So if you have a question with regards to how to do a piece of analysis, you do want to be turning up to this session and you do want to be asking questions. So she's emphasized that she's keen to let you, for you guys to ask and guide this session. So what do you need? What do you need to learn? How can you improve your skill set with regards to SPSS? So please get in touch with Claire directly to let her know how she can help and guide that session. So she's going to send out some questions, I believe, and some self-help worksheets. And the focus of those sheets will be able to you can start some sort of simple data manipulation and producing some descriptive stats, which should be fairly straightforward. And again, the more complicated stuff will be dependent on what you ask her to cover in the session. So please get them sent to Claire by Monday at the latest, she's asked here. She's also opened up a discussion board for coursework 2, so please post any questions you may have with regards to coursework 2 on that section there. Now, I've provisionally scheduled Claire to come in on next week's SEN stream for a Q&A session. It may be in the studio, I may be based at home, and it could be a Google Hangouts call that we have with Claire during that Q&A session. Nevertheless, we are trying to organise Claire to come on to SEN stream and discuss some of the questions that you may have. There will also be, finally, there will be a formative feedback session in a week, but please approach Claire by email for an early opportunity if you want one. I'm just going to quickly move over to the chat and see if there's any specific questions. Sorry, let me just have a quick look. Okay, no questions come in with regards to that, so I am going to politely move it on to the next section. Now, I believe we've got updates for assessment of health and fitness. Because Jane has already been in to talk about the module, we're going to move over this pretty quickly. But just to be clear, you're going to take the opportunity to practice get some more insight as to the assessments that are coming up and practice your presentation skills next week. So this will be a nice session for you guys to get in the rooms with the people that you will be presenting with, get some feedback, some kind of real feedback from your peers with regards to your presenting style and the type of information that you want to present, and be constructive with one another, don't offend anyone, and try and ensure that you guys are kind of working with one another to improve the quality of your presentations moving forward. So good session to get involved with, great one to enhance your presentation skills moving forward, so do get involved with that session. I'm going to move it on to Research Methods for Health Sciences 2. I've assisted Teddy in trying to distribute the marking load across all of the supervisors for the design study submissions. So all supervisors are now aware of the marking criteria, they have the rubrics, they know where they are on the module Blackboard sites, and we have a marks return date of the 9th of April for this particular module for the design study stuff. And I've asked all SEN supervisors to ensure that those marks are returned the Friday before that, which I believe is the 5th of April, so to ensure that we've got time for moderation and all that stuff. So I've tried to put checks in place to make sure that you guys get the marks returned on time. It will be largely dependent on the GPHN staff also conforming to those dates. I'm going to leave Teddy to handle the GPHN side on things like that, but that's the formal line that's coming out from that module. For week 11, Teddy has encouraged you to use the G-Power software onto your PC and Mac following the links provided during the week 4 lecture by Teddy. So make sure that you're prepared for that session by getting that software loaded on there. Read around the topics before attending the week 10 lecture. I've again been in touch with the session leader, which is Regina, to find out what she plans to cover in that session, so I can find out how to make that session more specific. Hopefully during the focus groups that was picked up on. Please let me know in the chat if anyone attended, or well, you should all be attending the sessions, but for those that did attend the session, did you feel like the session was specific to, did you feel like you were catered for in that session? Because I've tried to make continual attempts to make sure that the session leaders are taking on the feedback from you guys and making sure your needs are a thing. If you feel like it hasn't been, please let me know and we can try and reinforce that point moving forwards. And again, a key point for this is that this is specific to all modules, that essentially we're going to be collecting feedback on the student module evaluation forms. So please just, again, if you haven't seen those for the modules that you are sitting, please prompt the session leaders or the module leaders specifically to ensure that those are provided, so that you guys have got an opportunity to give your thoughts and feedback on the module. And it's super important that you guys have the opportunity to do that. So please follow it up with the staff if you feel like you haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. Again, I'm going to move back to the chat just to find out if there's any questions. Yes, here we go. Sorry. Let me just get the chat open on the screen so I can actually see it as well, because it's difficult for me to see. A question from Vicky, who can't make the stream today. What's happening with the ethics committee meetings? I can answer that straight away because I've just got an update there from Jane. We had asked the ethics committee to provide us with submission deadlines. I was under the impression that that was going to be today. Now, most of you should have submitted your ethics application to your supervisors, of which they're then taking the opportunity to consider your application before forwarding it on to the ethics committee. I can confirm, and I will probably put an announcement out about this as well, that all ethics submissions need to be submitted to the ethics committee, as in your supervisor needs to have submitted to the ethics committee by Monday, as in this coming Monday, which would be, let me just double check the date for that. That would be Monday the 25th of March. From what I understand, they are having an ethics committee meeting on the 1st of April, of which you guys should find out the outcome of whether your application has been successful from that date onwards. So hopefully that answers your question. I will make sure that supervisors are all also aware of this. They should be, but I will make it crystal clear. So again, you've got the weekend to work on any feedback that you get from your supervisors, but please be in contact with them to make sure that they forward on your application to the ethics committee by 5 p.m. on Monday. So hopefully that's now nice and clear. Any questions on that, please feel free to ask me in the chat. I'm going to move it on. I'm just acutely aware that the stream is taking a long time today. Sorry. So, next up, dissertation watch, keeping you on track. I feel like I've just addressed some of these, but yes, an ethics alert. Make sure you're in communication with your supervisor regarding your ethical considerations for your project. So for most of you, that will be ensuring that your supervisor is happy with your ethics submission and getting it submitted to the ethics committee, not just to your supervisor, by Monday at 5 p.m. I will send out an email, internal email, to all of the supervisors to make sure that this is followed up with, so that you are all covered. Again, where do you need to be? Keeping you on track for the dissertation. Again, if you're going to be using the 4th floor labs, there's 2 things that you need to do. You need to go and speak to Helen, introduce yourself and tell her what you're going to need, and so that she's aware of your project and know that it exists. And secondly, I've sent out a Google form, which is an equipment requirements Google form, which if you are using any equipment on the 4th floor lab, you have to fill this in, and you need to do that by next Wednesday at the latest, so that we've got a good handle on what equipment is going to be used, when and where, and on what projects. I've seen 7 responses so far, so thank you very much to those people who have already filled in the form. You are well ahead of the curve. Thank you very much for doing it. For those of you who haven't seen this, I'm going to make this super clear. When you click on the link, you will see, my camera's the other way around, but you will see this particular form. It says, please select the equipment and facility you wish to use for your research project. You can see here the equipment that you intend to use for your MSc research project. You simply just go through the form and click the equipment that you want to use. There's also an option at the bottom for others. If you feel like you have missed a piece of equipment, please add that in as well. I've seen quite a few students simultaneously select the YSI and the HemaQ. The YSI, just to be aware, measures blood lactate and glucose. You guys should be aware of that. So if you are selecting the YSI, you probably wouldn't need to use the HemaQ. Similarly, if you're using the HemaQ and you're not interested in lactate, that would also be an appropriate method direction to take. So just to bear that in mind. If you've already submitted it, it doesn't matter. I can interpret your project accordingly. So hopefully that's super clear. Let me head over to the chat just to make sure there's no questions about that. Okay, excellent. Nothing coming in, so I'm going to move it swiftly on. Moving it on. Again, if you do have any questions, folks, just let me know. So, a continued professional development opportunity here from the British Dietetic Association, the Sport and Exercise Nutrition Register. Thank you very much to Vicky Newbold who sent this through. She got an email announcement saying that this was about to take place, so thank you for sharing that with us. It's going to be on the 17th of May at Liverpool John Moores University. So again, they have an MSc program in sport and exercise nutrition. Professor Graham Close is the guy who heads up that. You also have Dr James Morton, who's based up there as well. And they've got a very nice sport and exercise nutrition department, sport and exercise science in general. Let's just head across to this link that I've placed here. You can see what the application process looks like. So you can see here we've got the sports nutrition showcase, details of the event, where it's at. Now, Vicky politely asked whether I would be able to negotiate a discount for that, and I'm very pleased to announce that you do get a discounted rate if you are a sport and exercise nutrition student of an accredited SEN registered program, which drops the cost from memory. It's in my email, which I will distribute out. Excuse me, but it drops the cost to £70 to attend this particular event. I'm going to explore attending this event as well. There's a few things that I just need to double check that I'm actually available and that I can get there, and that there's no issues for at home with regards to my childcare. So if you're interested, let me know that you're going to be attending in some way. Just send me an email. It'd be good to know how many people are going across. And then we can get a good representation there. There's lots of events that are taking place there, speakers. You can also, here's a good point, you can also take the opportunity to submit a presentation request, which can be a really nice opportunity for you guys. Talk about the work that you're doing. And they're using this kind of novel format where you get 20 slides and 3 minutes. I think you get 15 seconds a slide. So check out what the requirements are for that. And if you feel like you want to put in a presentation, go for it. be a really nice opportunity for you to stand in front of lots of sport and exercise nutrition professionals and have your opportunity to do a nice professional presentation. So if you're interested, get involved, check out the opportunity, and we can go from there. Let me know as well if you plan to do that, and see if we can support you guys moving forwards. Okay, no questions on the chat, so we're going to move it on. Sorry, I was thinking we were on PowerPoint, but we're not. Here we go. Excellent. I don't have any PhD opportunities. Apologies for putting that in. I thought I would do, but next week I'm going to take the opportunity to do that. So I will head back over to the chat now. If anyone has got any generic questions that they just want to ask that they're not sure about, it doesn't matter which module it's about, whether it's about the course, whether it's about your project, whether it's about anything, just ask away and I will try and answer those now. But whilst you guys are doing that, I am going to take the opportunity to project ahead to next week, just to remind you what we're going to be featuring on SenStream next week. So episode 22. We're going to take the opportunity to speak to Claire with regards to the nutritional assessment module. As I say, I'm likely going to be hosting SenStream from home next week. I've been making some adjustments to my little home office to allow me to do that. I'd like to try and take some leave because I have all this leave that I never take, and because I never feel like I can, because the job's just brutal. But there we are. So I'm going to do the stream from home next week, so the likelihood is we're going to have Claire come onto the stream, but it will likely be via a Google Hangouts call. So I'm going to make sure that Claire has the appropriate equipment to make sure that the call quality is decent. So the likelihood is I'll share my screen. You will be able to see me talking to Claire, and I can still take answers and questions on the chat. So it's not quite as nice as having her in the studio, but nevertheless, it will be a nice opportunity to have Claire in the studio while we do that. Now, to follow on from some of the feedback that you guys gave during the mid-semester feedback form, one of them was looking at career opportunities moving forward. So next week, I'm going to have a little careers section as to where is the most appropriate place that you guys can identify sport and exercise nutrition related jobs, or science jobs, or development jobs from there. So if you are interested in finding out more about that, make sure that you sign on to SenStream next week. Next week as well, I'm also going to try and some of you might got an email this morning saying, oh, episode 21 of SenStream is going to go live. There's a feature on the YouTube channel there I can actually create an event. Unfortunately, I've never managed to do it successfully yet. So I'm going to give that another go next week because it helps to streamline things moving forward. So check out that and keep an eye open for it ahead of next week. So assuming there is no further questions that anyone has to ask, I will finish up and just say thank you very much for watching as always. It's been a long one today, the longest one I think we've done so far, so I apologise for that. But I think having the opportunity to get Jane in the studio, talk to you about the assessments and things like that is always very helpful. So I finally remembered this week, if you enjoyed SenStream today, please like the video. It helps to just get a little bit of feedback as to how the episodes go, and also registers on the channel so that when I show this to other members of staff who might give us some money to improve the facilities, they can see that students are actually enjoying it. So please remember to like the video if you enjoyed it, and click I didn't like the video if you didn't like it. So just let me know what you think and go from there. As always, any questions, outstanding questions, just put a comment on the chat, comment beneath the video, and I will get a notification and try and follow it up from there. But nevertheless, thank you very much for watching this morning, guys. It's been a long one, but it's hopefully been a good one. So enjoy the weekend. Make sure you get on top of your ethics if that's a thing for you. And I will see you all next week for another session for Advanced Performance Nutrition. Okay? Thanks very much for watching. Take it easy, and I will see you next week. Cheers.